I'm a business owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are, maybe hopefully they're listening or watching, are business owners or want to own a business. And they might wonder, how do you evaluate what your business is worth? And I know that's a loaded question. I know there's so many different variables.
Sure.
But in general, if my business has a net profit of, let's say, $100,000, what's the formulas that are generally used by a commercial broker to evaluate, just kind of on a base level, valuating businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question. I mean, there's so many factors, right?
Sure.
So we're talking about a pure business opportunity.
Yeah.
There are different formulas and different metrics, and they depend on the location and the business type. But to answer your question, let's just say the $100,000 in expenses, and they have $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably figure 2.5 times that, so maybe 250.
Okay.
And some of the factors that go into that are how many hours does the owner put in?
Mm-hmm. Are they an owner operator, or but I'm just, yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are they spending 16 hours working?
Yes.
As opposed to, do they just have a manager and they're just collecting the money? So there's a lot of differences, and I guess
that's why a lot of restaurants just close, right? Is because they're making $80,000 in profit, but the owner's working 70 hours a week, and people are looking at that restaurant and going, I don't want, if they can't find another owner or operator of that restaurant.
Right.
Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah, and you got to look at who the competition is, what the competition is.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're listing your business, what's your competition, so to speak? With a house, it's pretty obvious. The competition's the neighbors. It's a similar house in a different neighborhood. That's the competition. When it comes to a business opportunity, the buyer is thinking, okay, I'm going to spend, say, $250,000 to buy this. Now, is it worth it for me to spend $250,000 to buy this? It's established. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, here's an empty space over here, and I can just recreate that business. Maybe it's like a noodle shop or something like that.
Noodles, right?
Yeah, noodles, right?
I love noodles.
I know you do. And so they got to think, well, for $250,000, gosh, I could, I talked to that landlord in that empty space. He's been vacant for 6 months now. He says he's going to do $50,000 of TI if I sign a 5-year release, 5-year lease. Maybe I could spend that $250,000 on a great marketing campaign. So you're competing with empty spaces, basically.
So then it could be just whatever your equipment is worth.
And often comes down to that.
Yeah, and then I wanted to touch on, look, you had talked to me before about location.
Sure.
And so, the example we were talking about before about Menchie's, a plug in Menchie's
right.
And why that Menchie's, the Menchie's that we have right in Bellingham, there's one right by Whole Foods, right?
Yeah.
And why that? And so why that one might be worse than somewhere else?
It's a safer long-term investment, because let's say you really, really want to do a yogurt shop, right? And you have a choice between buying a Menchie's, up somewhere off the Guide Meridian, far away from any schools or athletic fields or whatnot, versus a Menchie's that's just right down across from Civic Field. As a buyer, I'm thinking to myself, well, okay. Of course, you think about a lot of things. Is frozen yogurt still going to be popular in 3 years, 5 years?
Sure.
Who knows? But beyond that, is this going to be a good location? The answer is yes. There's always going to be a Civic Field. There's always going to be the ballparks. There's always going to be every day after the track meet or after the soccer game. There's always going to be hundreds of kids who all want a treat. Right?
Absolutely, I've been there.
I've done that. You've done that.
And that's why there's a little Caesars right there too.
For sure.
And they're going to crush it, because that's what you do is you get pizza and ice cream for your kids after all those games.
Right.
The sports bucks, the fields, yeah.
Yeah, so location's a big thing. And then the other thing is just brand name identity.
Sure.
There's a big, like John L. Scott. I mean, there's a difference between John L. Scott and XYZ Real Estate Company, right?
Sure.
Because John L. Scott has the name and whatnot.
90 years.
It makes more sense to buy a John L. Scott that was doing the same numbers as a no name.
Right, right. Okay, that makes perfect sense.